Production funding is provided by A. Reddix and Associates, Health Information Resource Center, offering short-term training for long-term professional careers in medical coding. HIRCVA.net.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. My thanks to co-producer Lisa Godley for filling in for me over the past 2 weeks while I was out of town. Lisa, you did a great job. Now, whenever I run into one of our viewers, invariably the first thing that's said is, "I love the round table," and that Bill Thomas is something else. Our round table is back tonight. Please welcome Roger Chesley, columnist for the Virginian Pilot, and you can find his columns every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Carol Pretlow, Associate Professor of Political Science at Norfolk State University, community activist Bill Thomas, and author and journalist Will Leviste. Hey, you guys, I missed you.
Hey, missed you too.
It's been a while.
We didn't miss Bill, but we
Okay, April 12th, 1861. That was the beginning of the Civil War. 150 years later, we have a teacher in the Norfolk Public Schools that decided to separate the class by race, blacks and mixed race on one side, whites on the other, and auction off the black and mixed race students. Your reaction?
It was I understand what she was trying to do in providing the lesson. Poor execution. First of all, you can't do something like that without getting the parents and the principal involved. Secondly, why try to do this with fourth graders who wouldn't understand the import of what she was trying to do? If you had prepared for this and maybe done something like this on the high school level, maybe that would have been acceptable. Mm-hmm. But you can't do something like that without having assurances from the principal that it's okay, without talking to the parents to make sure that it's okay. It was just a bad thing, and it was something that Stephen Vegg, the reporter at the Pilot, got tip on it, so obviously it was something that the school division was not exactly proud of talking about before we started doing some questions on it.
Mm-hmm. Carol?
Yeah, I agree with Roger. I think that the execution was poor, and I think that the age level of students has to be considered. If you were talking about graduate students, and even then, I don't know the separation by race. You can draw lots, sort of like Oprah Winfrey did. She did an experiment a few years ago, and have people separate and have them say, well, this is the experience, and how would you interpret it, and how would you apply it? But at that age level, I'm not sure that this was appropriate at all.
Bill, do you think even adults, I mean, I wonder how even adults would deal with this if they were put into that type of situation, much less a fourth grader?
Well, I guess I got two things on it. It was age inappropriate, no question about it. But then you guys, again, I think you're naive. What more do you expect from these government schools? This is what they do. They do whatever they want to do. There's no sense of design to it.
Well, now, in all fairness, Superintendent Bentley did say it was wrong and outside the boundaries of appropriate instructional practices.
Oh, that's just talk, and I'm sure you'll have him on to talk to him about that. It's just something that he's just metering down, just going along with the system. They don't teach these little African-American kids how to read or do things, and it's just another, in my judgment, I've been on this forever. I think we should get our children out of these government schools. They're out of control. If the school doesn't have that kind of discipline, to have some kind of structured lesson plan, especially on an issue as sensitive and as important to me as slavery, they would allow this child to corrupt these kids' minds at the fourth grade. They will never forget this the rest of their lives. And the kids, the little black kids and little kids of color, give me a break. Government schools, get rid of them. Get charter schools, get on board with Bob McDonnell, and do something different.
Well,
it could happen at a private school.
Oh no.
I think the bottom line is that you had an individual teacher, poor judgment, made a mistake, and I think what it says about the importance of studying history, understanding it in its context, because more as you go, it's from generation to generation, people are further and further away from memories of segregation and these types of things. You get people who will make a decision like this thinking that they're doing something good and actually...
The one thing that I was concerned about is, and this was one of the things that came out, I think, in some of the discussions over the story, is it is so hard to talk frankly about race in this country. It is still sort of third rail of much of what we do. And again, I wish there had been just a little bit more planning to show this is what actually happened in our country. This is how people in the state were actually parceled out to people who were the highest bidder. But all that got lost, and again, it's unfortunate. I think we need to have serious conversations about race in this country, and it's very hard to be candid. It's very hard for feelings not to get hurt, and it's very hard to progress is so slow.
Do you get the impression that since President Obama got in office, that it's even more this whole idea of being able to talk about race and to look at racial issues is even more sensitive now than ever?
I think people are very sensitive about it, and a few years ago, Norfolk State had a conversation, what we call a dialogue, on a post-racial agenda, and the conversation for those people who did attend was good, but the numbers of people from both sides of the community who said, unfortunately, I cannot attend. And some of these people waited till the day before, and you know, the dog died, the cat had fleas, and the fish aren't feeling well. So they use all kinds of excuses after saying they wanted to engage in a dialogue. But I think it's the sensitivity of the issue.
I don't know if it's more sensitive, but I think, and even though I've supported President Obama, I don't think it helps to have a president who doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh, give a break.
I don't think that helps, but I think, you know, we see 2 presidents ago, Clinton at least said, we want to have a dialogue on race. I don't think it's more sensitive. I don't think that is really that much difference.
Yeah, I would agree.
But actually, you had a program on people talking candidly about race, and folks really don't want to do it. But I think that's more of our part and our fault, because we don't talk candidly about races as well, and we let things slide. And when we stand up against race issues, like when the Commonwealth of Virginia booted Hampton University out of the Virginia Sesquicentennial ceremonies because we said we were going to tell it in from our point of view totally. We didn't believe in this cavalier manner of slavery was good and you little black folks could be owned by other people and somebody could own me. Oh, no, you don't own me, you can't do anything. And they booted us out. And the black community didn't say anything. They just let it go and let it slide, and they bought into this Virginia slavery stuff. And so I think it's a lot our fault.
So we don't speak up enough.
No, absolutely.
And then unfortunately, when an incident like this happens, you know, when someone is trying to make an effort to do the right thing, and they make a misstep, a total misstep, it discourages others who would probably have done a better job of executing.
There's no better way of putting me in a position where my children see themselves as slaves. That is intolerable. That is not a condition of anything close to right.
I don't think any of us disagree with that.
Okay.
You know, there have been other things like teachers have made clear before times, okay, you blue-eyed kids, you're going to be on this side. You brown-eyed kids, you're going to be on this side. The blue-eyed kids will get certain privileges. The brown-eyed kids won't get certain privileges. And then they might switch it up in the afternoon. So you sort of
feel it on both sides.
But again, you know, you have to explain these things to parents to make sure they're on board with this.
The one unfortunate thing is that the teacher has not spoken out, so we don't know what her true mindset was.
Oh, I don't think you're going to see that happen anytime soon either.
Government schools. As long as you continue to put your kids in government schools and allow them to set the agenda.
But Bill, if this was a judgment call, if we're making the general assumption
it's the bad
that it
government.
was a judgment call, then I agree. I mean, Will makes the point that anybody can make a bad judgment. So is it you're going to blanket the whole school system?
No, the government is all of the problem. You know, the government is just, you know.
No, if you have kids, raise your own kids. If you have kids, educate your own kids. It is not my responsibility to do that. Now, as a collection of individuals wanting to get together to improve the value and prosperity of their communities, yes, we should all do that. But let me do it using my money.
I don't want to homeschool my kids. I want somebody who can educate, who's gone to college for this, who has some.
Did your kids go to public school?
They did for 1 year.
Okay, there you go. Okay,
my kids went to public school,
and
I thought the government was us, and I wondered
the government is not. I'm my own government.
No,
I don't buy.
I'm scared
we live in a government. We the people. So
we the people.
What I see is that I wonder if this was a private school, would the pilot have gotten?
Yeah, we might not learn about it. And here's one other thing. I love this. no government schools. If there are no government schools, how many of our kids do you think are not going to be taught? The percentage is going to be a lot more of our kids not being taught.
How many of our kids are being taught in these urban government schools now?
How many do you think will be taught? How many more do you think will
not appreciably more? Not appreciably more. Not appreciably more. To a quality,
I disagree.
To a quality education.
Afford a private school.
Excuse me?
Everyone can't afford a private school.
Everybody can. They can afford.
They
can afford plasma TVs.
Well, he's also talking about charter schools too. He's saying the public funds should still go to different schools.
No, my tax. It's not public funds. It's my funds.
I thought you said
it's my tax dollars.
I thought you said charter.
Where do you think the government gets their money from?
Charter schools aren't a
everybody's
panacea.
tax dollars, is it not?
Excuse me?
For charter schools, it's everyone's tax dollars.
It's publicly funded.
It's publicly funded, correct?
Yes.
What I want to
What do you want to do?
I want the government to get off my back. I want them to get out of things that they shouldn't be involved in. And one of the things that I don't think they should be involved in my judgment, and I've been over this historically, is in government schools.
Can I have your Social Security when you start getting it, please?
I'm not going to get Social Security. It's gone. See, that's another fallacy.
Who is the government? Who is this big body somewhere? Let's establish who is the government.
Who is the government?
Yeah, who is the government?
What do you think the government is?
No, I asked you.
Oh, I can tell you who the government is.
Tell me, please.
I'm my own government.
When you say the government, who is that?
It's the bureaucracy down. It's called Norfolk Public School System, or Hampton Public School System, or Newport News Public School System, that takes our money and misapplies it inappropriately to not educating our children.
So it is accountable to us, and so we want to change that.
The government is not accountable to anybody. That's why it's where it is.
So you actually believe that every individual...
I thought we were talking about slavery, but
Actual
question. I'm sorry. Yes,
slavery is a government issue.
You know that you do not have the capabilities of educating your child. Maybe you cannot.
I do have a capability.
You individually do, but we're using a hypothetical.
Okay.
Suppose an individual feels that they don't have the education, they don't have the money to educate their children.
Right.
So what is this individual supposed to do?
They'll do the same thing they did down at Fort Monroe 200 years ago. They start a contraband school. They start their own schools to educate themselves. We've done this before. You act like this is something we haven't done.
We had no option back then.
We have no option now.
All right, hold on. Because otherwise we will stay on schools all day. State of Black America. Urban League just came out. Bill, there you go.
There you go.
Where is Black America?
Urban League released their report on the state of Black America. And Will, tell us what they said.
Yes, sir.
Well, what the Urban League is basically saying, and put out a report about the emphasis needs to be on creating jobs. And also when it comes to pitching to the government to put forth policies that will encourage and create jobs and really a focus on the urban communities. I had Mark Moriello actually on my radio show and talked to him about this, and I asked him, okay, in absence of the government doing anything, because it's my personal view that 12-point plan that the Urban League has put out, the government is not likely to act on it. Our legislators are not likely to act on it. What could individuals do? One of the things he said was emphasis on education.
Yes.
And emphasis on entrepreneurship. And I agree with him wholeheartely. We've got to value education and we got to create jobs.
The question that I had about it, one of the points of the 12-point plan that they came up with was that the government should give states and cities money for police and firemen and teachers and so forth. But the question then becomes, once that grant runs out, then what? How do they stay employed? So,
you're on your own.
So I look at that as
but you're on your own. It's like when the Jews were coming out of Egypt, and every time they needed to give something, it was called manna. God provided for them, and there would be food and water and whatever they needed, it was provided for them. But once they reached the promised land, there was no more manna. Government is broke. There is no money. There is no manna. We have to understand that it's not government, it's individuals. And groups of individuals can collectively get together and do anything. And we got to get out of this mindset of Black America. It's over. It's America. It's either us or it's nothing. And I'd probably go on too much with this.
First you say we have to do it for ourselves. But then you say, no, it's there is no Black America. So
Where's Black America? Where is that now?
I think it's like right around Collie and no, I'm just kidding.
Well, I agree with you. And 35th Street.
There are all sorts of collectives and groups in this country, and we as Black Americans are one of them. And I don't understand this.
The other thing that the report looks at is the disparities between whites, blacks, Latinos, and how we can close the gap on those disparities. So that's where you actually get, well, what is Black America and where is Black America? Because unemployment rates for Black America, from average Black Americans, is twice that of white. So something is still going on. Yeah, something is still going on where in this country, though we want to be all Americans.
What do you think is going on? Do people want to work?
Oh,
because
yeah,
there are plenty of immigrants coming over here living their lives in danger to get here to go to work. So in the African American community, why aren't our people working?
Well, given that there are, I don't know what the latest figures are about how many job seekers there are for each job that's available, I think there, and knowing some people who have been looking for work for a while, I think Black people want to work.
I think people want to work, but are the jobs out there for them to go to?
Carol, I think you're right. You have to have jobs for these people who want to work. So if there are not enough jobs available, then of course you're going to have massive unemployment. And it's a competitive society. So if you don't have education to educate the people so that they can get the job, of course they're going to fall through the cracks.
I talked to a woman yesterday. Suffolk is getting ready to cut some of its bus routes back. And so I went out there to talk to some of the people who are going to be affected by that. And I talked to a woman who had lost her job 2.5 years ago. She has been catching the bus, going to the library, trying to log into the computers there to find out what's available. She said, it's been hard. I'm still at it. But if they get rid of the bus, I'm having problems with transportation. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with the time. I think very much people want to work, but it has to be something that's sustainable. It has to be something that hopefully they can get back to and from the job successfully and not spend too much money to do so. And these are serious issues for people who are looking for jobs.
But is it government or is it individuals? I'm saying it's individuals. I'm saying that the template that the Urban League has set up, as credible as the organization wants to be, it doesn't start with government. It starts with individuals. It starts with what we were talking about out in the green room. Our elected officials going down to Richmond and making sure that the governor and the elected officials are bringing the kinds of opportunities by supporting small businesses, by supporting Norfolk State. We have to have our elected officials do this. And if they don't do this, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrats, because as far as I'm concerned, they're both at risk at doing this. And if our elected officials don't do that and bring back opportunity, not government, because as you can see what's happened in Norfolk and other cities.
I think, Bill, your point is exactly right, and that what you need to do is not separate the people from government. What you just said is that our legislators should be doing more, and we need to make them accountable to do more. And why is that? Because government is accountable to the people. Government is not an entity from some other planet in and of its own. And what people fail to do is to make our government more accountable and do for us what we want to do.
Is that where that individual point that you're trying to make, is that where you start then? You got to vote. You've got to speak out. You've got to go to the civic league meetings. You've got to do whatever you can on the level, on whatever level. I can give you
specific examples that sometimes I don't like to get into, but I will. Please government will support, this quote government, will support private industry. They'll say we need to bring business to Hampton Roads. We need to bring business to Virginia. But when groups like Hampton University Proton Therapy Institute actually goes out, spends $225 million, and meets up to the matrix of what they deserve in terms of the matrix that the government has set up to help encourage and exploit those opportunities, Hampton University gets zero in the state's budgets. At the same time, Norfolk Grumman will get $50 million. Carilion will get $69 million. They'll give totally white, friendly organizations that's being supported by, quote, their elected officials and others, and the governor as well, opportunity. And then they don't want us to do anything. It's what it's used to call the soft bigotry of low or no expectations. Since we are expected to do nothing for ourselves, government looks at us in this low life. So even if we excel, that's diminished. And it's just so obvious that there's no uproot about why don't we do something to make government. Government should be my slave, not vice versa. I don't work for government.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Me.
Because government is operated by people, and people should make government accountable.
Yeah.
But government isn't accountable because government isn't fair,
because
government isn't right.
Because the people don't make it accountable.
Exactly.
All right, we got one more topic. We're running out of time. The Fab Five documentary was out recently. Jalen Rose, Grant Hill. We've got a clip to show you first, and we'll talk on the other side.
Schools like Duke didn't recruit players like me. I felt like they only recruited black players that were Uncle Toms. I looked at it as they are who the world accepts, and we are who the world hates.
Classism, racism, internal hatred, what is it?
It was a good documentary, first of all, but as somebody who lived in Detroit when the Fab Five came to prominence, I was disappointed and a little bit upset at Jalen Rose's characterization. First of all, Jalen, to make this big deal about who Duke was going to accept and who the University of Michigan was going to accept, you got to be able to make the grades there, first of all. And secondly, there are a lot of people who have two parents. I'm sorry that Jalen's father, whom he never met, he said this publicly, and only talked to, I guess, a few times in his life. You know, I'm sorry he didn't have that type of upbringing. But that's no reason to denigrate the individuals who went to Duke, and
those who may not have seen it. The whole idea behind what Jalen was saying was because he grew up in a single-family household and he came from the streets, Duke would never accept him, would never recruit him, and he was kind of saying that that's not the same thing that happened to people like Grant Hill, who came from two-parent homes, very highly educated.
So he's saying it doesn't have anything to do with grades or the ambition to get higher grades and to be a part of those who are. Because
he said what I just said.
Yeah, I know some people that came from single-family homes, and their grades are superior, and they are at Princeton and Yale and other places.
It goes back to what I was saying, the soft bigotry of low or no expectations. I mean, Mr. Rose obviously was not raised in a loving household, that single or not, that taught him that he had value. And Coach K at Duke has set up some high standards, and he doesn't bend on his standards. And just because he didn't want to accept it, whether it's a social standard or an educational standard, for him to call the Mr. Hill a Uncle Tom, because he has excited to excel, to exceed beyond what his parents wanted him ever to do, is unfortunately one of the things that keep us looking at the state of Black America.
Will,
I think the problem with the clip was the context. Jalen didn't make it clear that what he was saying was that he resented the fact that he didn't know his father, and it was a certain level of jealousy. And he even said in the clip that he didn't hold it so much against Grant, but that what he was feeling was, I wish I had what Grant had. His own kids are now growing up like Grant, and his mistake, and I think there's a little bit of marketing in here, his mistake was that he didn't make it clear that this is what was my mentality at 18. This is what I was thinking. This is how we were going into the game. This is the kind of edge, and I know as an athlete who played and grew up in public housing, that mindset and how you need to go into a game to create an edge, and he didn't make that clear. He didn't make it clear. And I would have liked to have seen actually Grant Hill, and he sort of made a statement that was a little bit more unified to come out and deliver a better message. But I can understand Grant's position. Jalen texted him and said, hey, man, I said
sorry.
this. You know, come on,
and they've known each other since they played against each other.
I mean, he could have got on the phone.
Didn't Mr. Rose go out and get a drink afterwards?
And on that note, guys, we are out of time as usual. I know it feels like just as we get started, we've got to stop, but we'll see you next month, right?
It's the government.
It's the government, absolutely. And we'll be right back after this look at what's happening in Hampton Roads. Tonight we pause to pay tribute to one of the winningest coaches in CIAA history. I'm talking about former Norfolk State University head basketball coach Charles Christian. Coach Christian passed away last week at the age of 83. During his time coaching the Spartans, he won 7 CIAA titles and 3 NCAA Division II regional titles. He finished his career with 319 wins and just 95 losses. Coach Christian will truly be missed. And we hope you've enjoyed our program this evening, and we invite you to visit our website, anotherview.tv, and sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. We send it out once a week, and it tells you the topics of upcoming shows. And your support ensures that Another View continues on the air, so please consider becoming a member of WHRO. Visit WHRO.org and point, click, and contribute, or call 889-9476, and a volunteer will happily sign you up for membership. Next week, Norfolk Public School Superintendent Dr. Richard Bentley and Norfolk School Board Chair Dr. Kurt Houston talk about educating your children despite budget shortfalls. We'll see you next time for Another View.
Production funding is provided by A. Reddix & Associates, Health Information Resource Center, offering short-term training for long-term professional careers in medical coding. HIRCVA.net.